Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to brandish your sword and lead your troops into battle. Arcadias no Ikusahime is here. Arcadias no Ikusahime is Nipponichi's effort for their 20th anniversary, but it wasn't developed in-house. Instead, it's the work of Apollosoft, a rather unknown software house with a portfolio of 3 games, including this one. This inexperience, if you will, shows up throughout the game. While this doesn't make Arcadias no Ikusahime a bad game, it makes it rather shallow. Arcadias no Ikusahime, or Battle Princess of Arcadias, is at its very core a scrolling beat-em-up, but with some interesting twists. At the start of each mission, you can select up to 3 main characters, whose you will control directly. Characters can be swapped by pressing L2 or R2. The other controls are very simple. X jumps, square and triangle are used for light and heavy attacks respectively, circle to use an item, L1 to guard, R1 plus square or circle to cycle through the available items. All characters have 3 independent bars: health, special and experience. Health and experience should be self-explanatory. Once the special bar is filled, a character can unleash a special attack. Health is completely replenished after a level up. At the end of each mission, you are graded based on your performance, like damage taken, consecutive hits, and time spent. The grade will affect the amount of bonus experience and the quality of extra weapons and materials collected. Finally, all surviving characters will see their affection go up. High levels of affection will make characters perform follow-ups to certain attacks and add in their special attacks when the controlled character triggers one. Extra weapons and materials are used to improve characters' special equipment. Weapons can be bought in store, but those will never quite reach the quality of the weapons dropped on the battlefield. Materials can be used to improve weapon stats, attack, elemental damage, luck, and to unlock special features, like extra health or faster build-up of the special meter. The interface is pretty straightforward, though the number of customizations available soon reach an incredibly high number, and browsing through them becomes a hunt for the best normal and elemental attack power-up. There are 3 types of mission in Arcadias no Ikusahime, identified by the flags on the world map: purple, beige and blue. Purple flags are normal stages, where the goal is to defeat all monsters that the game will throw at you. In beige missions, it will be army versus army. First, you select troop types, based on the weapon the enemy wields. Second, you select the usual 3 main characters, that will act as commanders. On the battlefield, pressing R1 and triangle will swap between character inventory and orders for your troops. Attack, defend, swap, special attack. While the 2 armies duke it out in the background, the main characters will still be under your direct control in the foreground, swarmed by small enemy squads. Defeating an enemy leader will give your troops a bonus, and vice versa. Blue flags indicate a boss battle. These battles are similar to army battles, as you won't act alone. Unlike beige missions, troop types are linked to the main characters you choose. Just like army battles, defeat comes if you lose all your main characters or all your troops. Bosses have 3 gauges: health, guard and stun. Before damaging a boss' health, its guard must be destroyed. The boss guard meter will be restored after a while. As the game progresses, more characters will join the party, with few of them overlapping other characters in terms of used weapons. These characters play in a different way than their counterparts, with their own combos, strengths and weaknesses. The differences between weapon types is also well done, even among heavy weapons like axes and greatswords. The whole system is well thought, but not without its problems. No matter what character at which level, the best way to deal with enemies is to launch them into the air, for follow-ups by other characters and limited air combos. Combos aren't particularly long, and some characters can kill enemies almost instantly when they get air grabs. Strong attacks only come into play to break guards, but the vast majority of times it's better to hammer an enemy with weak attacks, hoping for a window of opportunity. Enemies tend to group together, so an attack will always hit something. It's possible to hit and to be hit by enemies off-screen. Rats, able to fire arrows in rapid succession, can end stages by just getting glimpses of enemies, raking up a huge combo counter without getting a scratch. There are just a handful of enemy types, the rest are recolors with very little variation to the way they attack. After a few hours, you'll have essentially seen every enemy the game has to offer, except for bosses. Every character joined the party under-leveled, and a degree of grinding is necessary to bring them up to speed, especially when said characters use new weapons. Unless you particularly like a character wielding a duplicate weapon, there is little incentive in spending time to level up every single character you have access to. Troops start at level 1, are leveled independently from a character and can only gain levels by spending money, not with direct battlefield experience. Not all troop types get the same amount of attention, and you'll find yourself favoring axe wielders, sword users and mages. The only orders having relevance in army battles are swap and special attack. Even with a large discrepancy in levels, your troops are more than capable to overrun the enemy if the weapon pairing is in their favor. During boss battles, tactics only cover defense and attack orders. More than any other mission in the game, boss battles depend on troop level, but no matter what a boss looks like, it's only a matter of being defensive while its guard is up and switch to offensive when down. Bosses don't have fixed attack patterns, but their attacks have a huge startup time, so defending against them is very easy. All 3 mission types are fairly easy to complete, and there is no punishment for failure except being thrown back to the world map and losing gathered items, with no other drawback. I found it's better to keep characters and troops under-leveled, because at least there will be a modicum of challenge, especially in army and boss battles. Grinding, luckily, is concentrated in the first part of the game, and only when a new character joins the party. After a short while, you'll have enough experience and money to keep everything going without having to repeat any mission more than once. Equipped weapons play a very important role, but their customization boils down to just improve normal and elemental attack. It's unclear if enemies have elemental weaknesses, as you won't feel at a disadvantage fighting enemies in volcanic lands with fire weapons, for example. Special weapon features also end up in being completely overlooked, just like restorative items, that only come into play in the last 2 stages and some of the endgame content. Summing everything up, Arcadias no Ikusahime lacks challenge and depth. The various mission types give a good amount of variety, but never quite pose a challenge. The fighting mechanics have a good foundation, the game is fast-paced and fun, but nothing more. I've left the story out so far partially due to the language barrier, partially because I don't want to spoil it to anyone. If you are interested in knowing some details and character traits I've picked up, you can continue. There won't be any major spoilers, but I will hint at something. For those unwilling to know anything, you can skip to the time shown on screen. So, the story starts pretty light-hearted, with all characters falling into well-known stereotypes. Plume, the battle princess, is naive and always cheerful. Raz, the green-haired archer, plays the kind-hearted big brother. There is the brawny muscular guy and the calm and detached one. Everything is pretty upbeat, with the whole situation played out in a comical way. There is something going on about a war between two realms, but the tone is closer to Disgaea more than to, let's say, Odin's sphere.
あ、はーい。そうだった。大事な話をするんだった。
Then, out of the blue, the game throws in a plot twist that I honestly didn't see coming, and while nothing groundbreaking or overly original, it was a complete surprise. Few plot elements, like Plume believing that dead humans will be brought back to life, just like monsters, seem thrown there to strengthen Plume's naivete, and instead they are later used to evolve both story and characters. Granted, I am not talking about incredibly high levels of writing, but it's pleasant to see that plot elements are not forgotten and characters change according to their own personality and what's happening around them.
次はないと思ってください。ここは戦場。甘えは許されません。いやー、しかし焦った。
I have two main gripes about the story. First, plot elements uncovered in the second half of the game are left incomplete when the game ends. I don't know if extra cutscenes are made available based on characters' affection levels, but the endgame content doesn't seem to go past simple missions. Second, it almost feels like the writers weren't willing to commit to a comical or a dramatical style, and cutscenes have incredibly different moods even when back to back. Of course, these are impressions based on glimpses of dialogue, but I think that the story in Arcadias no Ikusahime won't feel like an afterthought to link missions together. Surely it has its problems, but I've seen worse.
アッシュ、そこで何をしている？
There is no denying that Arcadias no Ikusahime is a good-looking game. Characters and backgrounds fit together seamlessly, and the whole graphical presentation is constant throughout the game, though there are very few wow moments. Backgrounds are mostly static, with just few effects here and there. Many levels unfortunately feature prominent foreground objects that block moderately large portion of the playable area, but graphically speaking, they are not bad. Animations are where the game is lacking the most. As with many things in this game, they are not outright bad, but they lack that something. Sprites, rather than looking as a single element, look like composed by smaller, independent sprites, not perfectly linked together. It's something that you get used to very soon, or it might even be a deliberate choice, but after Dragon's Crown and Rayman Legends, absolutely stunning games graphics-wise, animations look a bit off. Music is something else of interest. Taken alone, all tracks are pretty decent, with some of them being very good. BGMs using outside battles fit the game pretty well, but battle tracks feel out of place, with heavy use of electric guitars and pop songs. Now, if I understood the story correctly, certain songs are there for a purpose, but the feeling that they don't really go along with the rest of the game still lingers. Voices are good, if a bit uninspired. Plume, Raz and Uni stand off the most, with the rest of the cast trailing behind. Just like enemies, sound effects lack variety, but are serviceable to the game needs. The language barrier is not particularly high, with the story taking the biggest hit. There is no English whatsoever in menus, except for few options, but the interface is simple enough to get you going in an hour or so. Unfortunately, other elements that are lost to non-Japanese speakers, like weapon features, do not impact the game enough to be worthy of translation. Arcadias no Ikusahime is a fun but shallow game that has become a guilty pleasure of sorts. I realize that it's way too easy and that only few elements show any depth, but it's pleasant to play nonetheless. It's not worth the premium that import games usually command, but once it gets in America and Europe, you might as well take a look at it. All in all, Arcadias no Ikusahime is average, but it's a fun kind of average. I hope you have enjoyed the review and you'll stick around for more. Briareos Kerensky, over and out.